Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful, creepy human being you, and welcome to today's true crime episode. I am so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day today, you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the horrific murder of 10-year-old Kiaya Campbell. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing, commenting down below, introducing yourself. I put out new videos every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. Now, before we get into the details of today's case, I first need to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Zocdoc. Now, I'm actually super excited about this sponsor because I watch another channel. It's not a true crime related channel, and they are sponsored by Zocdoc, and I was always like low-key, high-key jealous. Not jealous. I was just kind of like, I wish that Zocdoc would sponsor me, and then here we are. Here we find ourselves, sponsored by Zocdoc. If you don't already know, Zocdoc is a free website that lets you find and book doctors for so many different conditions. Pretty much anything you can think of, you can find on their website, from mental health to dental health. And those are two things that are very, very important. There are doctors on Zocdoc who specialize in nearly all specialties. They specialize in nearly all specialties. And these are doctors who are verified by actual patients. They're in your area. They take your insurance, and most importantly, they are available when you need them. And you know what else? It's super easy. You can just go on the website and filter through the doctors that fit your criteria and book instantly through the site. You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to deal with phone anxiety when making appointments, which I know is something that so many of us do deal with. And by so many of us, I mean me. I deal with it. And I assume I'm not alone in this experience. And you know what? Not only is booking through Zocdoc super easy, it's also super fast. Most appointments available through their site, you can see a doctor within like 24 to 72 hours. And sometimes you can even get same-day appointments. Same-day appointments. And same-day appointments can sometimes be incredibly important, not only convenient, but also important, because your health really is the most important asset that you have, the most valuable asset you have. And it can change pretty quickly, pretty drastically with things that happen to you. I experienced this with my pregnancy. I had to go all the time. I ended up having to go several times a week. And I found that it was vital. It was vital to take care of yourself and to be comfortable. And comfortable, convenient, reliable, these are three words that in the past, especially when I was pregnant, I did not associate with healthcare. But with Zocdoc, you can. So if all of that sounds as good to you as it does to me, and you want to try Zocdoc out for yourself, go to Zocdoc.com/Bratterstein to find and book a top-rated doctor today. Now, I just want to say a big thank you to Zocdoc for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Zocdoc that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock, don't ever change. And thanks again to Zocdoc for sponsoring. And now, let's go ahead and get into this video. Now, this video is on a case out of Thornton, Colorado. And Thornton, Colorado is about 30 minutes outside of Denver and has been said to be just like a really great place to live, offering a, quote, high quality of life and a strong sense of community. It was here in 2017 that a 10-year-old girl went missing when she was out on a walk with her stepbrother. And though hundreds of people were out looking for her, and this small community collectively put all their hopes, all their prayers, all their time and energy into just trying to make sure that the sweet, innocent girl would come home safe, unfortunately, she was found murdered. And she was murdered in such a brutal and savage way. And then you take that and you add who did it, the motive or lack thereof, and it added a whole new layer of shock and disgust to a case that was already unbelievable. So today I'm going to tell you the entire story. I read all the things so that you do not have to. And at the end of this video, I want you to answer the question of the day. I'm going to give it to you now so you can have it kicking around your brain as we go through the details of this case. But of course, I want you to answer once you have something to go on. But the question of the day is this. It's a really simple one. And it was, what do you believe was the true motive for the murder of Kiaya Campbell? We haven't gotten an answer. I'm sorry to spoil it in any way or to give away too much at the beginning of a video about the case, but we don't know. So I'm curious, after you hear the details, why do you think this person did this to her? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, because I am curious to hear what you have to say. And now with all of that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of 10-year-old Kiaya Campbell. Our story today is going to begin on June 7th, 2017, and again, we're in Thornton, Colorado. And it's on this day that just before midnight, a call comes in to 911, and the person on the other end of the line is a worried mother who's telling the operator that 2 of her children are missing. The woman on the line's name is Katie, and she's telling the operator that her 15-year-old son, Aidan, and her boyfriend's daughter, this was 10-year-old Kaia, had been missing for 5 hours. They had left 5 hours earlier and had not come back. She said that her boyfriend and her son had gone out looking for the kids and wasn't able to find them, and said that her boyfriend was actually out again looking for the kids, but they were having no hope in finding them. So officers were dispatched to their house, and they're meeting with Katie. They're getting all the information they can to try to find these kids, because this was highly unusual for 2 kids to go missing together with no sign of them this late at night. You know what I mean? Like, this would be a weird situation. But as Katie's standing there with these officers giving them the information they need, her phone rings. The person on the other end of that call was her boyfriend. This was Jacoby. This was Kaia's father. And he was saying that while he was out looking for the kids, he had found Aidan, but just Aidan. Kaia wasn't with him. Kaia was missing, and Aidan seemingly had no idea what had happened to her. So, Kiaya May Campbell was one of 2 children. She had a brother named Alexander, and she was born on August 22nd, 2006 in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, to parents Jacoby and Chantel. So Jacoby and Chantel did not stay in a relationship. I don't know the specifics of what happened between the 2 of them, and honestly, it's not super important to the case that we're discussing, so I didn't feel the need to try to dig into their lives, because, again, like, what happened between them doesn't have to do with what happened here. But what I can say is that for whatever reason, the relationship didn't work out. And at the time that this case took place, Kaia was with her dad, and I believe Alexander was with his mom. At the time she lost her life, Kaia was 10 years old. She was a 5th grader at Monarch Montessori in Denver, which was a, quote, environment in which a child could continue to grow within the Montessori practice from infancy through 5th grade. So she was in 5th grade. This was her last year at Monarch Montessori, and she was said to excel at school. And she was said to be a, quote, beacon of compassion and benevolence to everyone around her. She was said to be a very open child, the type of child who was always smiling. Those who knew and loved her said that Kaia was most herself and sparkled the most when she was singing, dancing, or in front of a camera. And this is something that you can actually experience a little bit in hindsight, which is a beautiful thing, I'm sure, for her family that get to sit back and rewatch videos of her, but also a tragic thing for those who don't know her. It might be tragic for her family too, I can't say. I can only say how I felt. But Kaia had a YouTube channel, and I did find this YouTube channel, and you can watch it and you can kind of see how she was and who she was in like a little blip in time. And it was sad for me to watch her and to think that she's no longer here. She's the same age as somebody who's important to me. So it just hits a little bit different. And on the YouTube channel, she's just like, she's a little kid, you know, she's on there and she's talking about slime and doing random challenges and opening up and showing off her Pokemon cards. She was just like a 10-year-old little girl. I was able to find her channel, and I was able to watch some of her videos and see how she moved and sounded, and you know how she was. And it's enough to break your heart. She just sounded so sweet and just young and innocent. And she was just a little girl who loved her families and owls. And her family said she was strong and courageous and the type of kid who would help anyone in need. She had charismatic energy and a passion for life that she expressed through many different ways, but most notably through music. Her love of music came mostly through her parents, her aunt, and her cousin, but she did love music. And something that was written in her obituary that really touched my heart was when her family wrote of this, quote, "The songs she loved, the songs she sang, will forever be a soundtrack to our lives." So, what happened to this sparkling child? Let's get into that now. So in June of 2017, when this happened, as I said before, Kaia was staying with her father. She was with her father, and they lived in a house that was in Thornton, Colorado. And they lived in this house with Jacoby's girlfriend. This was Katie, and her 2 sons. 2 of her sons also lived there. These were twin boys named Aidan and Ethan. Now, you'll hear Katie the girlfriend. You'll hear her refer to Kaia as one of her kids in the 911 call when she called to report that they were missing. This is assuming you listen to that 911 call. If you do, you'll hear her refer to Kaia as one of her kids, but this wasn't necessarily true. Kaia was not in any way related to Katie. Katie and Jacoby weren't even married. From what I read, I don't believe their relationship was even very long term. It was rather new. But that didn't mean that they weren't serious, because they were serious enough to live together. They all shared a home that was located at the 12400, 12,400 block, there you go, of Forest Drive in Thornton. And that, my friends, even if it is new, sounds pretty serious. So anyways, on June 7th, Kaia and her quote-unquote stepbrother, they lived together. They were, you know what he was. They decided this was Aiden, just so I'm clear, because there's Aiden and Ethan. Kaia and her stepbrother, Aiden, decided that they were going to walk to the store to buy Kaia some more Pokemon cards. So basically what happened here is Aiden had taken, like a day or two before, Aiden had taken some of Kaia's Pokemon cards and had been like flicking them at the wall and bent some of them and like ruined some of them. So they were going to go to the store so he could buy more to replace them for her. And he said that she wasn't upset about this, which was actually a little bit surprising because this girl loved Pokemon cards. She had a big old stack of Pokemon cards, and those were like something she was very into. She showed them off on her YouTube channel. But according to Aiden, she wasn't upset about this. And that's because he was going to replace them. There was a problem though, and that's that Aiden had no money. He's 15. He doesn't have a job and he has no money. So he comes up with this plan that he's going to go. In his initial plan, he was going to go to the store and shoplift a couple packs of Pokemon cards to give to Kaia. But when she found out what his plan was, she decided that she wanted to go along. So this is what they were planning to do when they left the house the day that she disappeared. So with that, they go to Katie. They ask if they can leave to go on this walk. Katie calls Jacoby and is like, hey, is it cool if Kaia goes out on a walk? He presumably says yes, because the two kids head out. When Kaia and Aiden got to the store, they found that stealing these Pokemon cards was not going to be an easy task. And that's because somehow in the last couple years, apparently Pokemon cards have like popped off again, which is very random, but also kind of cool. I had my binder. Do you guys know? If you were around, if you're about my age, you know the binder with the sleeves with all the Pokemon cards. I definitely had one. Did I know how to play with them? No, but I had them and they were cool. And apparently they're popping off again. So when Kaia and Aiden got to the store, they found that the cards were now kept like locked up. You couldn't just get them. You had to ask somebody to get them for you so that kids wouldn't steal them and adults wouldn't steal them to like sell them. Or I guess maybe these adults are stealing them to play them. Like, I don't know. You're like, go off with your Pokemon card playing self if that is you. But the point is, the cards were locked up so they couldn't steal them. So at that, they said, like, book this. And Aiden decided instead of stealing Pokemon cards, he was going to fill his jacket full of candy. So he did that, and then they left. They were only in that store about 10 minutes. Their next plan was to go to another store nearby and go there and try to steal the Pokemon cards. But it was June, so it was hot outside. And Kaia's like, I am thirsty. You shouldn't say this, but you didn't steal me any water, bro. Like, I'm thirsty. So they decided to go back to the house so they can get some water. They get to the house, they get a backpack, they get like a jug of water, they put it in the backpack. They give one of the pieces of stolen candy to Ethan, Aiden's brother, who did not join them, and then they head back out. So the second time these kids left the house to go out to like go to the second store, it was about 7:30. So Katie was not expecting them to be gone very long. There was no reason why they should be out of the house very long. They were just going to the store. The store was called King Soopers, which I had never heard of before, but it is a, quote, American supermarket chain located in the Rocky Mountains. It's owned by Kroger. So Ralph's, Food for Less, King Soopers. Great. All good and well. But again, it didn't need to take very long to make this trip. So it definitely didn't need to take 5 hours. Because remember, by the time they called 911, it's been 5 hours. So when Ethan goes to Katie after a little bit of time, or a lot of bit of time, it's like, hey, Aiden and Kaia still aren't back. They went into panic mode. They got in the car, they went out, and they started looking for these kids. They drove around the neighborhood. They went to nearby stores. They went to King Soopers. They went to a nearby Walgreens, and they weren't finding any sign of the kids. So after looking for a while and having no success, they went home. They called the police. This was right before midnight, and they reported that the two kids were missing. With that, police arrived and some officers left to start looking for the kids, as did Jacoby and Ethan. They went out to look for the kids as well, while Katie stayed there with the officers and started giving them the information that they needed. I'm trying to slow down my speech. I know I get so many comments and I'm talking too fast, but my brain just goes. My brain just goes. Did you know, if you're one of the people that think I talk too fast, one, you've probably already clicked off. But two, if you're enduring me, you can change my speed. You can slow me down. Or if your brain moves really fast like me, you can speed me up. Just so you know. What was I saying? Oh, Katie, she stays back at the house. She's giving the officers the information that they need. And then her phone rings. And the person on the other end of the line is Jacoby. And Jacoby is telling her that he found Aiden. He found Aiden walking along Fairfax Street just south of 128th Avenue. But again, it was just Aiden, not Kaia. So Aiden was quickly dropped off at home and police kept looking for Kaia, but within no time, the police ended up picking Aiden back up and driving him around on a cruiser, having him take them to the spots he had been with Kaia before finally they took him to the police station to give an official interview because they wanted to get some sort of information from him that was concrete that could help them try to locate this little girl. I mean, it's the middle of the night. They have nothing to go on. And Aiden's initial story that he and Kaia had gotten separated from one another during a rainstorm just didn't really make sense to them. It wasn't adding up. In the meantime, though, search parties were put together to try to find Kaia, and missing persons flyers were made and posted everywhere. There were so many people, hundreds of people who met at Skyview Elementary and were searching for Kaia along with more than 20 police agencies. The description that they gave out to the public for them to, be looking for with photos and all that was she was about 5'4", 150 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes, and she had last been seen wearing an orange Manning Broncos shirt with light blue pants. So back to Aiden. He's with police and he's told them, great, pretty much everything that I told you about the Pokemon cards and going with Kaia. This is going well. Speaking is good. I'm good at it. Anyways, he tells them everything that I told you so far about going to the store with Kaia to try to steal Pokemon cards. He admitted to that, about that being something that was unsuccessful, about going back home to get water, giving the candy to Ethan, and then going back out. And he tells them that they walked to another store, tried again to steal cards, but was again unsuccessful. Aiden said after that they were walking for a while. They came to an area where local kids had made some forts. Apparently this is a place where the kids hung out. He said they, or did he say he? He, maybe they, hopefully not they, smoked a cigarette, and then they continued to walk a while near a creek. And this is when they noticed that above them were dark-looking rain clouds. Was it perhaps Winnie the Pooh painted with mud? Holding a balloon? I don't know. Probably not. But he said he notices some dark-colored clouds, and he's like, tut-tut, it looks like rain. So he turned on to the Heritage Trail walking path that was at about 129th and Colorado Boulevard, tied under some branches. But he said that Kaia was impatient. So after just a few minutes, when the rain didn't start up, she wanted to start heading home. She didn't want to stay there. She wanted to try to just go back and make it home before the rain started. But Aiden, as we already said, he said he wanted to wait it out. Now, from here, this is where his story gets a little bit weird, okay? Because he says that they're there. They're hiding beneath the branches. They wait and the rain actually does start up. And then for some reason, even though he was trying to avoid the rain altogether and she was trying to get home before the rain started, they waited for the rain to die down a little bit, but not completely stop, and then proceeded to walk out in it. They didn't wait it out. They didn't go into one of the nearby businesses to try to get dry because they're in a place where people exist. They're not out in the middle of nowhere. But instead they start walking in the rain headed towards the house. He says at this point, Kaia is right with him. He behind him where he isn't staring at her, but she's with him. And then all of a sudden she just wasn't. He said that she just vanished into thin air, had no idea where she went or why she would have left him. Now, by this time it was dark, so it's possible that something could have happened and he wouldn't have seen it, but he did describe it as her being right there, that she was gone in a split second. And he also said that this was an area, a neighborhood that she didn't know. He added that he didn't think he said anything to upset her. They weren't having a fight. There was nothing that would make him think that there was an issue between the two of them that would make her want to leave. But he did also make a point to say that she was a 10-year-old girl and sometimes they're crazy and get mad about dumb things. He said that once he realized that Kaia wasn't with him, he went back to the area that they had been and he started to look for her. He said he went into the neighborhoods and he called out her name. He looked in wide open spaces to see if he could locate her, but he didn't find her. He said that he looked for her for 30 to 45 minutes. But when he still wasn't able to find her, that's when he decided to head home. And after a little bit of time of walking home, that's when he ran into Jacoby, who took him home. And, now we're back to where we started. Now we're back at the house because Jacoby took him back to the house. Great. So at this point, police push him because what he is saying doesn't make sense, obviously. They tell him, so you're telling us that she disappeared by herself, just randomly, in an area where there were, a lot of businesses around. Again, they weren't in the middle of nowhere. So you're saying that just walking down this road with all these businesses to the left of you, all these businesses to the right of you, I don't know if they were really on the right and the left, but businesses all around them. You're saying that she just disappeared and that when she lost you, she didn't just go into one of these businesses and try to get help. She didn't have a cell phone. Neither of them actually had cell phones, or rather Aiden had one, but his had been taken away for disciplinary reasons, which we'll get into shortly. But she did know Jacoby's phone number, and she did know, because obviously that's her father, right? She knew Jacoby's phone number. She knew Katie's phone number. So there's no reason why she wouldn't call for help, because by the time that they're having this interrogation and you and I are talking about it, it had been 8 hours. 8 hours since Aiden had last seen Kaia, and she hadn't contacted anyone. No one had heard from her. None of this made any sense. Kaia was 10 years old. That is a literal child, okay? And she disappears in a neighborhood where, as Aiden said, she didn't know this neighborhood. She didn't know where she was. She wouldn't know how to get home in the dark. And she wasn't the type of kid who would have a reason to run away. She was seen as a happy child. She got along with Katie. She got along with the boys. She liked and got along with her father. She loved her biological brother. She was seen as a happy child with no reason to run away. But, from Aiden's perspective, he just said that he didn't know where she was. And even though he acknowledged that she would be scared, she'd be out there scared and alone and would be the type of child to ask for help, he couldn't explain why she hadn't yet. Now, I don't know if you've caught on to the vibes here, but at this point, the police are definitely thinking that 15-year-old Aiden knows more than he is telling them, and they actually think that he may be responsible for Kaia's disappearance. And that's because they knew during much of this interview that he had been lying, okay? Among other things, they had him sit down and draw a map for them twice of where he and Kaia had been that day. And remember, he had already been out driving with them and showing them. And police had been out there with sniffer dogs, and her scent was inconsistent. It wasn't consistent. They weren't able to track her with these dogs. And that meant that Aiden was likely lying because they had many sniffer dogs out there and none of them could track her. And really, how could a billion sniffer dogs be wrong? Another thing that police noticed that Aiden wasn't being truthful about was that when he was initially questioned, in the beginning of his interrogation, his questioning rather, because I don't know when it switched from questioning to interrogation, but when he was first questioned, they asked him about the clothes he was wearing. And he told them that everything he was wearing, except for his jacket, was what he had been wearing when he was out with Kaia. But they had looked at surveillance footage from the store that he did end up going to, and they found that this wasn't true. He wasn't wearing the same things. And in addition to that, the shoes he was wearing, he's saying that these are the shoes he had been wearing when he was out with Kaia, but they look at the shoes and they're like, you were out walking in the rain and somehow your shoes are totally clean. And you might be thinking rain, water washes away things, right? Great. This makes a lot of sense. But also, if you ever walked out in the rain through fields, you're going to come back and there's going to be mud and grass stuck all over your shoes. I don't know about you, but that's always what happens to me if I walk through rainy grass. And if that's not convincing you, there was other stuff as well. Okay, for example, you remember how I said that Aiden told police that after they went and got the water, they went back out. They went to another store and they were unsuccessful at stealing Pokemon cards, right? You would think why would you lie about that? Well, maybe to explain where you were during a time when you may have been doing something else, because the police went to the store. They checked the surveillance camera footage and Kaia and Aiden weren't on it. They checked from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. And Kaia and Aiden were nowhere to be found, okay? So they take this information to Aiden and they go to him and they're like, hey, you're not on the surveillance camera at the store where you said you went. Care to explain yourself? And he's like, I don't know how to prove to you I was there. Maybe you need to check the cameras for different times and you'll find us. But the thing is, they wouldn't, because Kaia and Aiden never went there. Eventually, the cop gets to the point where he's not beating around the bush anymore. And he just looks at Aiden and he says, like, hey, did you do anything to Kaia? And Aiden responds with, quote, why would I do anything to Kaia? And the cop at this point is like, I just asked you if you did. Why are you answering a question with a question? Why are you answering a question with a question? And asked him again, did you do anything to Kaia? And Aiden responded, quote, no, I didn't do a single thing to Kaia. From this point, they keep questioning him and they're asking him different types of questions now. They're asking him if he's angry, if he has homicidal thoughts, if there was anybody that he knew who would tell them that he had expressed having homicidal thoughts. And you could tell that he was irritated and he seemed scared. And he was scared because he was then asked by police, like, are you worried about Kaia? And he said, like, quite honestly, I'm actually worried about myself. I'm worried about myself and Kaia. So the cop asked him, like, why are you worried about yourself? And Aiden responds with, this is a bad situation and it looks bad as hell. Like, no one knows where Kaia is and you all seem to think I had something to do with it. And you know what? His feelings weren't that far off. At this point, the cops give him a break, and when they bring him back in, they try appealing to him. They talk to him about his mom. They ask him if he cares about his mom, and they tell him, like, your mom's broken up. Your mom is freaking out, having no idea where Kaia is. And then they bring up Jacoby, and Aiden literally says, like, I cannot even imagine how Jacoby must be feeling right now. And then the cop asks him, like, well, what about you? How are you feeling? And he kind of had a weird answer. He said that he was upset, of course, like who wouldn't be upset thinking about her out there all alone and scared and unfound, but said that it wasn't really something that was weighing very heavily on his mind and his heart. And then the cop asked him, like, well, what about if we don't find her? Like, do you care if we find her or not? And he said, like, of course, if you don't find her, I'll be upset, but I won't be as upset as somebody who cares about her more than I do. Which seems like an honest answer, but it doesn't seem like the type of answer that anyone who wasn't guilty would give. That's something that I can say. Police then start asking him questions that, again, definitely show that they believed he was responsible at this point. They ask him about his anger issues. They ask him if he had ever hurt anyone. They ask him if he was to hurt somebody, how he would do it. And he says a fist fight. He says a fist fight is the only way he knows to hurt another person, but made sure to let you know that, like, he hadn't been in a fist fight in quite some time. It had probably been a month or two. And he says that's because he had been really good lately at controlling his anger. He would stuff it down, have a cry, and just be done with it. Though we do find out that that's not entirely true. The him getting control of his anger and stuffing it down and crying and that being it. But we'll talk about that shortly when we talk about him like talking to his mom, or, let's actually just talk about it now. So during this interview, Aiden gets to the point where he's frustrated and he tells the cop, like, can I be done with this conversation? I've told you the same thing 7 times now, and I get your frustration, but I'm also frustrated being here, having to repeat myself over and over. And the cops tell him, like, we're not going to let you go right now. He tells them, like, I feel like you are just wasting my time. You're wasting your time. Everyone's time is being wasted by questioning me. And at that point, they decide, like, hey, let's bring in his mom. And they bring in Aiden's mom to try to soften him a bit and get him to be more forthcoming with information, basically. Now, Aiden immediately becomes a puddle with his mother. You see him, like, melt into the tabletop and just start talking to her. And he tells her how frustrated he is and how he doesn't understand why they would think he had something to do with why Kaia was gone. And tells her, like, they don't believe me. And his mom had an interesting response to this. She says to him, like, hey, maybe your history is why they aren't believing you. And she says that she's not trying to be mean to him. She's just being honest. So now we can get into Aiden's history, which is a bit layered. Aiden had been to Jefferson Hills before, which he later admitted to in a polygraph. And Jefferson Hills is a center that, quote, provides behavioral health care services for children, youth, and their families in Lakewood, Colorado. While there, according to him, he was diagnosed with ADHD, major depression, major emotional disorders, and anger issues. And when asked what makes him angry, he just said that his life was pretty bad, too much had happened to him, and it just made him angry. For years, Aiden had been going to therapy consistently, both in home and also in centers. And he said that it was really helping him, that he was able to not get angry as much or as angry as often. He wouldn't have outbursts. He wouldn't break things. He said now he would walk off and sit by himself and get control of his emotions and his actions, despite the fact that a few months prior to this, he had stopped taking his medication. Now, Aiden didn't personally mention this during the interview. A lot of this stuff he did volunteer, openly. But in looking into his records, they were able to find that Aiden hadn't been totally truthful about the issues he was suffering and when they happened. Aiden had a lot of issues, and they weren't just issues from his past like he would like to make people believe or like he wanted to make the cops believe. According to his records, he had recent violent outbursts, he had blackmail behavior, anger, and aggression, and apparently it was bad enough that the woman from social services who was the point of contact when getting this information said that though she was not Aiden's caseworker, just from reading his file, she was very shocked that Katie would have allowed her son to go on a walk alone with a 10-year-old girl at all. She said she found that to be shocking. Which, speaking of Katie, let's go back to the interrogation room with her and Aiden and the conversation they're having. She asked them, did you and Kaia do anything you shouldn't do? Did you smoke? Did you drink? Did you steal? Did you do something that she may be afraid to get in trouble for? And that's because, one, she knows her kid, right? She knows her kid. And two, when Ethan was talking to police, Aiden's brother, was talking to police about where Aiden and Kaia might have been. He said that it was possible they were out, I believe he called it car hopping, which is basically where they just go and try to open unlocked cars or open car doors and see if they're unlocked. And if they were, they'd go into the cars and steal all the shit. Which I'm like, I know people do that. I didn't know kids did that, but I guess that is kind of a childish thing to do. So it makes sense that would be something that children would do. But everything that Katie threw out to Aiden, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? He denied it. Still, she asked them, though, are you sure? Are you sure that there's nothing that you and Kaia did that she's afraid she'll get in trouble for, which would make it so that she wouldn't come home? And he says no. And then she asks him if he needs a hug. And he literally, crawls into her lap and just melts into her. Anyways, police get permission from Katie and Aiden to take Aiden's clothes and also to take saliva and fingernail scrapings. And Aiden, being a child, not knowing much about this, asked his mom, what's all that for? And she said to check your clothes and check everything to make sure there's no blood on them. They also agree to let Aiden take a polygraph test. And this is about the time where things start to heat up a little bit, not just in the fact that he's taking a polygraph test and they're going to know whether or not he's lying, but also in some discoveries that they make around this time. This is when Aiden told the polygrapher. This is when Aiden told the person running the polygraph machine all about his therapy and his anger issues and his outbursts. And this is when he also, while hooked up to a machine, retold the story of when Kaia went missing for an hour. After telling his story of what happened, the polygrapher person left the room to go and talk to other detectives, leaving Aiden alone. And what he didn't know is that they were out there and there was a big development in the case. But he, again, doesn't know that. So he's in the room and he's just thinking about how he performed on that polygraph test. And I feel like perhaps he knew that he had lied and that things were going to show that he had lied. So it dawned on him that he should maybe change his story a little bit. So he goes and he flags down an officer, and the officer comes in and he tells them, okay, if there's something I feel like I need to say that I didn't say during my telling of what happened, the officer's like, bet, what is it? And he tells them that the night that Kaia went missing, she didn't just disappear without him knowing. He left her alone on purpose. He tells this officer that Kaia was really annoying him, that this 10-year-old girl was annoying to him, which it's like, newsflash, 10-year-olds are annoying, yes, but you need to take care of them, okay? Anyways, he says that she was annoying him, so he left her alone at Conoco, which is a gas station. And the cop's like, okay, thank you for telling me this. I need you to sit tight and tell the polygrapher this because, this is what, she's here for. You need to tell her this. So He sits there and he waits, and 15 minutes goes by and he like loses it a little bit. He's like, I can't do this. I can't sit here anymore. I can't wait anymore. I need to go to sleep. I need to get out of here. And the cop tells him, like, just wait. I need you to wait until she comes back. And so he sits, and within minutes, she does come back, but it wasn't coming back with news that was going to make him feel better at all. This officer, this polygraph administrator officer, this woman, takes him into a different room than he had been in before, sits him down and tells him that he failed. And she's like, listen, we both knew that you were going to fail, but I have even worse news than that. And this is when she tells him that they had found Kaia's body. They had found her body in a greenbelt area, which is a, quote, designated area of undeveloped wild or agricultural land surrounded or neighboring urban areas, which is so heartbreaking. I can't imagine being this family. I can't imagine being a member of this community who had rallied together so hard to try to find her and then learn that she had been murdered. And one woman who had taken part in the searches for Kaia, this was a lady named Laura, said of this quote, "My heart's breaking for their family. She's only 10 years old. Nobody expects to lose a child. I was really hoping that she'd still be alive." And Jacoby's brother, so Kaia's uncle, this was Thomas, said that like he really hopes his brother doesn't blame himself for what happened. But like as a parent, I can 100% see how you would blame yourself whenever anything bad happens to your child. And I'm sure it adds another layer to it for him, knowing that him and his relationship with Katie and the two of them living together gave his child's killer access to her. I can't imagine what that feels like for him. Even though it's obviously not his fault, I can't imagine how guilty he feels. Now, I do want to backtrack a little bit here to when they first realized that Kaia was missing so that we can discuss how she was found. As soon as they realized that she was missing, police immediately had started looking for her. It was night by this point, and she was 10 years old, and there were several bodies of water nearby, so they were concerned that it was possible that she could have been like swept away in a flash flood since there was a storm that night. So they searched all throughout the night, but there was no sign of her. By 1:30 p.m. the next day, an Amber Alert was issued in this case, which actually did surprise me because I was under the impression, I've always been under the impression, that in order for an Amber Alert to be issued, there is certain qualifications that need to be met regarding the disappearance, like the description of a car or a suspect in the disappearance. I could be wrong here. I must be wrong here, considering an Amber Alert was issued in this case. You'll have to let me know because I know so many of you are so smart. You're great. But that was my understanding, so I was surprised to see that an Amber Alert was issued, but one was, but it didn't end up mattering because within 4 hours, it was canceled. But 5:30 p.m., the Amber Alert was canceled, and that's because, sadly, Kaia's body was found face down in a drainage ditch. A 911 call came into police from a man who said he was just out on a walk with his family. He was out with his wife and his kids when he stumbled upon something that no person, no family, no kids should ever stumble upon. And he calls 911 and he literally says to them, quote, "Yeah, I think the little girl that's missing in Thornton, I think my wife and I and our kids just found her." The operator then asks him, like, okay, are you in contact with her? And that's when he sort of stumbles over his words and says that no, he's not in contact with her because unfortunately he didn't think she was alive. And he told the operator that she was face down in this ditch and that a lot of her clothes were off. So police rushed to the scene and they met up with the man who made the 911 call, who led them to where he had found her body. And it was pretty quickly determined that this had to be Kaia. She couldn't officially be identified that quickly, but it was kind of like, okay, how many missing 10-year-olds are there out there that fit this description from this area? So it wasn't until the next day that she was officially identified, and the coroner stated that her death was listed as something other than accidental, but within no time that was changed to homicide. And that's because they had determined that this little girl had been beaten to death. Okay, during her autopsy, it was confirmed that her cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. And the doctor said that the bruises were circular and may have been caused by something like a hammer. And it gets worse from there because when she was found, and she was found about a mile away from where Aiden said they had been. Remember, she's face down in the stitch and she is undressed. This man said that she was undressed and he was correct. It makes me so fucking angry because she's just a little girl, man. But her pants and underwear were down. Her pants were around her ankles. Her underwear were around her thighs, and her shirt was pushed up to her shoulders. So obviously police were going to be swabbing her for DNA because they very seriously suspect that sexual assault was part of this crime. But back to Aiden. Police are sitting with him and they're talking with him and they're like, listen, like, it's over, dude. Like, I appreciate that you've had a hard time. I appreciate that you're sitting here and you're with us and you've been talking to us. But this is when you need to start talking more. You need to tell us what happened. The cop tells him, this like lady cop tells him, like, listen, there's an explanation for everything. And it's at this point that he starts to panic. It's like he's finally realizing that they know he did it. Okay. And he freaks out and he tells like, wait. Are you saying that I'm the one who did it? Are you saying that you think I'm the one who did it? Immediately he loses it. He starts crying. He starts asking them what happened. He starts asking them to confirm that she was dead. And he seems very convincing, actually, which is horrifying, but he does. And he just keeps asking them, like, what's happening? The cop continues trying to get him to give more information and trying to continue with the interview and tells him, like, here, listen, this is what I think happened. I think that you stopped taking your medication, and I think that you haven't been feeling like yourself for a while now. And immediately he interjects. He's like, oh my God, like, you guys think I did it. I didn't. He denies it over and over and over. They then tell him that they have surveillance footage of him and Kaia walking towards the area where her body was found, and then just him walking back by himself. And they weren't in the area that he said they had been. They were in the area where her body was found. They had gotten footage from several cameras around the area to put together their timeline. And they tell him, we know you were together, and then shortly thereafter, you weren't together anymore. And he's like, I know, I told you I left her there on purpose. She was so annoying. She was just talking about all the things she wanted. And then just starts asking, like, what's going to happen to me? Don't they always ask that once they get caught? I feel like, what was it, Jennifer Pan? Like, but what's going to happen to me? He had very much the same sentiment. It's like, you're going to get to live. You're going to get to continue living because nobody killed you. That's what's going to happen to you, Aiden. No matter what this cop tried, Aiden just denied it, though. He said he didn't do anything. He said he just left her. He said that he'd admit everything he lied about, but said he never hurt her, and then cried and said, why would I ever hurt her? Why would I do that? He then tells the cop he doesn't want to talk to them anymore. He wants to be left alone. And she asks, like, do you want your mom? And he says yes. Once his mom comes in, he does break down further and he says, like, over and over, they think I did it. They think I did it. He's like, they found her body and they think that I killed her. And you see them, they end up sitting like in a ball on the floor, like completely wrapped up in each other. And she's just holding him. And he asks his mom, like, what's going to happen to me? They think I did this. This is something I'd never do. And she looks at him and she's just like, listen, you've lied to them over and over. How do you think this looks? And he just says that he didn't think it was going to go down like this. He thought that she was going to find her way home. And then he cried and he asked, like, how did she die? What happened to her? And she just said that she didn't know. And again, he's very convincing. I mean, I know a mother can sometimes tell when their kid is lying, but I would have trouble if there wasn't all this evidence that clearly shows he did it. In that interview, I would have trouble believing he did it because he did seem so convincingly upset and adamant that he didn't. But it just goes to show that, like, people's words don't match up with the things that they do. And it does seem like she did get to a point where she started to wonder if he was being truthful, because after some time together, she does ask him if he had anything to do with what happened to Kaia. And of course, he swore over and over that he didn't. And I've seen a lot of criticism online about Katie for several different reasons. Her attitude towards her son during the interrogation, her emotion or like lack thereof of emotion. She just didn't seem as engaged with him as you may think one would be in this situation. She was on her phone a good amount. She didn't seem particularly shocked to learn that her son was arrested for something like this. Didn't seem shocked to learn that Kaia was dead. Again, we're just seeing her in the interrogation room, though. We're not seeing her when she finds out from police that this was true. But people take issue with that. You know, they take issue with the amount of time that she was on her phone instead of paying attention to her kid. They take issue with the fact that they believe, they don't know because we weren't there, but they believe it's possible that she didn't tell Jacoby how serious Aiden's mental health issues were. I mean, if this social worker was shocked to hear that Aiden would be alone with a 10-year-old girl, they wonder if Katie would have mentioned to Jacoby how dangerous he may be to a 10-year-old girl. And, you know, obviously you'll have to let me know what you think about that. I don't know how I feel about that. What I can say, at least when it comes to like her calmness and her reaction to the fact that her son is being accused of this, is being questioned about this. I'm not even going to touch the did she tell Jacoby or not, because like I don't know and I don't want to speculate about that. But when it comes to the other part and just her demeanor in general, I feel like one thing that we can say that's safe to say is like no one knows how they're going to react in a situation like that. I feel like nobody can know how they'll react when they hear that their kid may have murdered another kid for no reason. And I don't know if they told her about the sexual assault part, but that too, it's like, how can you know how you're going to react? Like, you could never imagine that your kid would do something like that, that the baby that you birthed and then you held and then you loved and then you watched when they first smiled and every single thing that they did and how smart they were and how perfect they were, that then they grow up and they do something like this. I don't know how I would act. I don't think I would be calm and like chill, but we don't know. But you'll have to let me know how you think about what you think about it and what you think about everything else, because I am curious, because it is very divisive. People do have strong opinions about it. I don't personally have strong opinions about it, but you'll have to let me know what you think about that, and then also everything else when it comes to whether or not she told Jacoby. And it's just, if she didn't, it's like, it's so like, ugh. Anyways, at this point, Aiden and Katie decide that he's done talking to police without a lawyer present, which truly, you probably should have never talked without a lawyer present. I would never talk to the police without a lawyer, period, ever. Luckily, it hasn't come up, but I would always get a lawyer. But even if I'm innocent, especially if I'm innocent, always. Great. They decide they're not going to talk without a lawyer present, and the cops sit down with them and are like, okay, well, here's how things are going to move forward. We would like to take a sexual assault exam of Aiden to see whether or not he sexually assaulted Kaia. And Katie agrees to let them do this, which makes me believe that she didn't really think her son was involved, is the vibe that I got. But who knows? I can't say. We can't say. Only she can say. And she hasn't said from what I've read. So she agrees to this. And when Aiden asks like why they're doing this, she straight up tells him like they're checking to see if you raped her. And he's like, he acts shocked. Like, why would I ever do this? But when they checked his body and they looked at his body, they found injuries on him that would be consistent with Kaia fighting back to this type of attack. Now, when this exam had to be done, it did have to be done at a hospital, so they had to wait for Aiden to be transported to a hospital to have this done. And in the meantime, he did sit in a room with his mom, and a few more things were picked up on the interrogation footage because they were in a room where things were being recorded. And while he sat with his mom, she and he talked about how sad it was. Like, he talked about how sad it was that she had lived such a short life because she was only 10 years old. And he also talks about, he asked his mom, like, if Jacoby had to go to the scene and identify her body, which is like, oh, dude, like, we know that these types of things have to happen, that people have to identify the bodies of people who died, but like, it's so fucked up that that's a reality that somebody would have to do when it comes to their kid. I don't think I'd survive that. I truly don't think I would. Eventually, though, Aiden was transported to the hospital and the sexual assault exam was administered to him, right? Because I said that they found marks on his body. So this happened. And afterwards, he was sent to a social services facility instead of going home with his mother. And this was at his mother's request. Why this was, we can only speculate. I feel like perhaps it has something to do with the fact that he would be going home to the same house where Jacoby was. I am just speculating here, but I would think that perhaps you wouldn't want your son to do that. But either way, it didn't matter because he wasn't going to be in this social services facility very long anyway. The DNA found on Kaia was a match to Aiden. And they got DNA from her in several different places, like under her fingernails, among other places. And for one of the samples, the probability of selecting an unrelated person at random from the population having a profile that matched was approximately 1 in 2 sextillion. And the other sample probability of selecting an unrelated person at random that was a match was approximately 1 in 42 septillion. So all of that is to say, it was him. Still, though, he denied involvement, and they already had a pretty strong case against him. But about a month later, they would get a tip that would solidify their case even more and help give them additional information that they didn't already have. Basically, what happened is a kid came forward, and this kid is somebody who was in the same juvenile detention center that Aiden was in. And this kid came forward and said they wanted to speak with someone at the DA's office because they had some information. And this information came from when Aiden confessed to him what he had done. This kid sits down and tells police that Aiden confessed to him that he had used a metal pipe to beat Kaia. This is graphic, so if you want to skip like 20 seconds, 15 seconds, I would suggest doing so because it was hard to read. It'll be hard to say. It'll be hard to listen to. But he said that Aiden beat her so viciously that he was able to see her brain through her skull fracture, and still he proceeded to beat her. Once he was done beating her, he then drug her down to that area in the creek where she was found. Now, could this kid be lying? I mean, he went to the DA. Perhaps he wanted to help himself out with a deal. I can't say for sure. But what I can say is that the things that he was telling police did line up with the evidence from Kaia's murder. Kaia had abrasions on her skin that were consistent with being drugged, and there were drag marks in the nearby foliage, which had led police at the time that they were assessing the scene to believe that she had been drugged, just like this kid was saying she was drugged. He added that after Aiden told him what he did, Aiden said that he blacked out and he didn't remember anything, which was weird for this kid to hear because Aiden had just recalled what he did in great detail. But either way, this is what he said. He blacked out, which is convenient. People always do be blacking out when it's convenient. But he said that Aiden said that he didn't think anybody saw him, didn't see what he did, so he ran home. And his plan was to run away. He was going to leave, but then the police showed up, so he didn't have a chance. The cop then asks him if Aiden had mentioned anything about blood, anything like that, and was pretty vague. But the kid ended up answering with a question that was basically exactly what this officer was sort of baiting him to answer. Like, he gave him the information he was hoping for. And the kid said that Aiden did say that he was worried the police may find blood on his shoes, but that he had tried to get all the blood off. And it turns out there was blood on Aiden's shoes. Police found blood on the laces of his shoes and also on the clothing that Aiden was wearing at the time of his arrest, which consisted of a shirt that I just must tell you about. It was a t-shirt. It was black with space on it. And Deadpool, you know, the character, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool riding a unicorn. And around him are chimichangas / burritos and tacos flying in space. And it says maximum effort. Now, these clothes do not matter, but once I saw the shirt, I felt I could not move past it. And the point of all of this is to say that the blood on the shoes and the blood on the clothes that Aiden was wearing, it was matched to Kaia. Now, the officers ask this kid the question that all of us have, that they have, that I have, that you have, and it was why. Did Aiden say why he would do this to Kaia? And the kid just said that Aiden said he had had a lot of stuff going on in his life. He had a lot of stuff on his mind, and it built up, and he just let it all out on her. And he said that Aiden didn't particularly like Kaia. He didn't like her, he didn't like her family, and he didn't like her dad. And sadly, that's really like the only explanation that we get as to why Aiden did what he did to Kaia. Like, when he was first being questioned by police before he knew they were onto him, they asked about his relationship with Kaia, and he said that it was fine. He said they mostly got along. They weren't super close. They didn't like talk about personal things, but they were civil. He didn't have much to say about her at all negatively. He did say that there were a little bit of growing pains in the beginning, getting used to each other. Like, one example he gave is that one time he got caught being high by his mom, and when Kaia found out, she was like, "Ooh, call the cops," and this caused like a little like argument. But that was pretty much it. The only other thing he said was that one time Kaia had made him mad and he thought about hitting her and called her a pig, which, don't call girls pigs, don't call people pigs. It's so rude. But that he didn't hit her, that's all he did. He thought about it, he didn't hit her, and that he had never hit a girl before. But we now know that that's not true, because he hit Kaia, and he hit her several times with a fucking metal pipe, dude. He literally beat this little girl as she fought back, getting several defensive wounds in the process, even a torn fingernail, and still he hit her 5 times in her head before dragging her to that ditch and leaving her there to die. They believe, based on the evidence they have, which consisted of several statements from residents who lived near the area where Kaia's body was found, that the murder happened between 8:30 and I believe 9:45. And that's because in talking to these residents, they heard that they had heard the sound of a child crying out around that time. So they took that, the sound of a child crying, plus the camera footage they had that showed them walking to the area and the time that they were there, to let them know, to like put together that they believed that these cries that the neighbors heard were Kaia. Now, the metal pipe of it all. A metal pipe was never recovered from the scene where Kaia's body was found. And when police went out and searched for it, they were not able to locate it. What they did do is they went to Aiden's house and they looked. They didn't find any metal pipes, though. What they did find was several hammers, but when they checked these hammers, none of them were a match to the wounds that Kaia had sustained. But just because the cops didn't find it didn't mean that it wasn't recovered, because as soon as Kaia's family, her mother and grandfather, found out about this pipe theory, they actually went to the area and searched themselves. They went near the crime scene, and in the because it was like dense, this where she was like a lot of greenery. And in this greenery near the crime scene, they found a metal pipe laying in the grass. So immediately they called the cops. The cops came and picked it up as evidence. So Aiden was arrested, and the next evening, the police gave a press conference where they announced that somebody was arrested for the murder of Kaia, but they didn't release Aiden's name because he was a minor at the time. Though it didn't take people long to put together who it was, because there are people who knew Kaia, knew the case, knew the families, knew Aiden, knew he was arrested, and were able to quickly put together that the person who was arrested was Aiden. Aidan was charged in juvenile court with the first-degree murder of Kiaya Campbell. But that same day that the charges were announced, the DA came out and said that they were going to do everything they could to get this case moved to adult court. The DA literally said of this, and I quote, "In 27 years as a prosecutor, I have never seen a 15-year-old commit such a violent act. He wanted to do this. His actions clearly dictate that he intended to kill her, and it took quite an effort to do it. And then to conceal it, not only to hide the body, but mislead, certainly indicates that his brain was developed and he knew what he was doing." The DA also added, quote, "15-year-olds make bad decisions, but they don't commit cruel, heinous crimes like this. After striking her 5 times in the head with a metal pipe, he left her in a field. When he talked to police, he was calm, cool, and collected. He misled and deceived police who were looking for her. This is a rare case. Thank God we don't have other 15-year-olds doing what he did." So he wanted Aiden tried as an adult, and he was going to get his wish, because months later, I believe it was in the beginning of 2018, they announced that he would be being tried as an adult. And he wasn't only charged as an adult for her murder, he was also charged as an adult for her sexual assault. Which, that revelation was shocking for a number of reasons, right? But particularly for the family, because when Katie was being questioned by police, when the kids were first missing and they knew that Aiden and Kaia were missing, the cops asked her if there was anything weird going on between Aiden and Kaia. Was there any weird, inappropriate, you know. And she was like, no, absolutely not. Kaia was 10 years old. She was coming into her body. Things were changing for her. And she wasn't at the point yet where she was great at grooming herself, because she's 10 years old. So Aiden often made a point to note how she was gross and how she smelled. He never expressed any interest in her in that way. But now he was being charged with sexually assaulting her. But, sexual assault isn't often about attraction. And I think that's the distinction here, is it doesn't matter if he was attracted to her, because that's not what it's always about. But anyways, I don't even want to talk about that too much, because it fucking just grosses me out and makes me so angry. Let's go back to the DA. So the DA was pretty gung-ho about wanting to go hard at Aiden, but in the end ended up offering him a plea deal. But before offering Aiden this deal, he did go and speak with Kaia's family and explain to her family that, because of his age when he committed the crime, even if he was found guilty, he would be eligible for parole after 40 years. And said that in taking the deal that he was offering, it would make it so that Aiden couldn't be acquitted, which I don't think he would have been. I think the evidence was pretty strong, but this is what the conversation was. After speaking to Kaia's family, he offered Aiden a deal where Aiden would plead guilty to the murder of Kaia, but in exchange, all the other charges against him, including the charge for sexual assault, would be dropped. And he offered Aiden this plea deal for two main reasons. One, they said the evidence they had against Aiden for the sexual assault was not as strong as the evidence they had for the murder anyway. And two, he said while in prison, he wanted Aiden to be able to participate in a program at the Colorado Department of Corrections for young killers, and sexual offenders are not eligible for this program. Which I understand why a program like this could be so important for Aiden to take, especially if rehabilitation is ever going to be on the table. And rehabilitation could be on the table for him because even if he was convicted without the deal, he would have the opportunity for parole at 40. So we want to make sure that or in 40 years, so we want to make sure that when that happens, he's not going out as a dangerous person. But then I think about how Kaia was found, how her clothing was found, how her pants and her underwear and her shirt. And at first, when I first started reading about this case, I was like, oh, maybe it's possible that while being drugged, her clothes got disheveled, because that can happen. We've heard about that happening, or we've heard people claim that that's what happened. But her clothing went in two different directions. Her pants and her underwear were down. Her shirt was up. I can't see how that could happen by being drugged. And I just hate it. I hate it. I hate the idea that he could have done something to her, that he could have sexually assaulted her before, during, after, whatever, and that he wouldn't be held accountable for that. Because sexual predators, and I've said this before, it's a different kind of scary. It's a different kind of dangerous to me. But I'm not the one who makes the call. The DA is, and this is the call the DA made. So he accepted this deal and he pled guilty. And at the time this happened, the courtroom was packed. There were many members of Kaia's family who were there wearing teal and pink because those were her two favorite colors. And they sat behind the prosecutor as they listened to Aiden's defense attorney, who was clearly emotional while giving the statement, talk about Aiden's mental health struggles, about his troubled family history, and about alleged abuse against him. During this hearing, there were videos of Kaia played where she was singing and she was dancing. And these are the same videos that her mother plays in her home on repeat whenever she feels like she misses her daughter and can't take it, which is more often than not. Now, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure, but Kaia's mother, Chantel, said that Aiden never showed any emotion, never took any responsibility, not even when he, a now 17-year-old version of himself, said to the court, quote, "I plead guilty," a statement that made his mother absolutely sob. The judge spoke to Kaia's family directly when she said that she knew that there was nothing she could say that would bring them any comfort or take away the pain that they were feeling. But she said that she hoped that the community coming together to try to find Kaia, and the community that's going to help remember her, brings them some sort of solace. She then spoke to Aiden directly when she said that only he can define the person that he will become. And if he wants to prove everybody wrong about him, it's going to take accountability and a lot of work. With that, a now 17-year-old Aidan Zellmer was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. The beginning part of his sentence would be served in juvie, and once he turned 18, he was moved to an adult prison. Aidan will be eligible for parole when he's just 56 years old. And that's assuming there's no reductions for good behavior, which is something that he and his family are hoping for, because with that, he could be out when he's just 46 years old, which does not seem like enough time to me, especially not for a crime that could have been sexually motivated. But the DA said that he believes the punishment fits the crime. He just does. He said of the sentence, quote, "A 10-year-old's life is gone, and her parents are going to be without her for the rest of their lives. So I think there's a sense of relief that they have some closure in the criminal justice center. But nothing we do here today is going to bring them absolute relief for what happened to their daughter." Which is true, but I think they'd feel better if he was in jail longer. And her mother feels the same way, dude. She doesn't think that 40 years was enough time. She doesn't understand how this 15-year-old child could kill her kid so brutally and then just continue to lie about it, and lie about it so convincingly. That's frightening, okay? She said, like, no mother should ever have to hear how her child was brutally beaten. And I agree. Because of Aiden, Kaia is gone. She was a child and she's gone forever, and nothing can change that. And just like her family said, 10 wonderful years with Kiaya Campbell was not enough. And with that, my friends, is the story of the murder of Kiaya Campbell. I hope that what I said was informative. I hope I gave you all the information you would want when looking into this case. And of course, I just want to thank you for remembering Kaia with me today. Now, considering everything I told you throughout this video, I want to revisit the question of the day, and that was this. What do you believe was the motive for Aiden to murder Kaia? My mind immediately goes to the sexual assault aspect, and it freaks me out to my core. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you think there was more to that, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Before you leave, please don't forget to leave me a comment down below with any case suggestions you have. I love looking into the cases you guys suggest. Anytime you leave a suggestion, I put it on my list with your name next to it, so if I cover it, I can give you a shout out. Because again, I love looking into the cases you guys suggest. They're often cases I haven't heard of or cases that need more coverage, and I know you're filled with great ideas and great taste, otherwise you would not be here. If you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell, introducing yourself in the comments below. I put out new videos every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below, along with a link to my membership and a link to my merch store. If you don't already know, now you know that my videos, my audio and my videos, what you're watching right now, is also a podcast. It's on one of these sides right here. So if you search True Crime with BRATTERSTEIN, wherever you listen to podcasts, mine will come up. And if you would like to listen, share, do anything you want to help push me out into the algorithm, I would appreciate it. And if not, I just want to thank you for being here anyway. And now with all that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. I hope to see you in my next video. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.